Chapter 15. Interstellar Space Station A2712. When Tavi arrived at David's place, it was already late afternoon. She knocked excitedly on his door, and it didn't take too long before it opened. "Hey, what are you doing here?" He looked at her in surprise. "Lux, he the special training. Something is seriously wrong. They're brainwashing the recruits and... Can I come in?" What? It's not really tidy. I wasn't expecting visitors," he said, but opened the door and invited her in. "It doesn't matter. Thank you." Tavi stepped inside and sat down on the dark green sofa in his living room while he started making coffee. "Do you want something to snack on?" he asked, looking around. Tavi shook her head. "David, just sit down. This is important," she snapped at him. "Start telling me already. I'll finish the coffee," he said. Tavi stood up and moved into the kitchen and began to explain about the iron bands, about Luke's collapse, and everything that has happened. "Damn," David ran a hand over his head. "So, that's why he was such an asshole," he muttered. Tavi wanted to say something, but then decided not to. "After that, I went to Stefan, and he has a plan," Tavi continued excitedly, talking about Stefan's basement, about the sketches, and about how he had a complete plan of the ACIST, with entrances and pathways, and that he wanted to hijack the ship on Independence Day, and that she was now part of it, and that they needed him too. David thought for a moment. "You really want to know the truth, huh? It's our only option. We don't know what else is going on, or how much more is wrong. The brainwashing, the constant portrayal of us as heroes and a superior species, and the lies about how we left Earth," David added. "It was cruel and unjust how people were chosen. It wasn't fair. Our ancestors weren't geniuses or superior. They were just bullies and murderers." Tavi noticed the book, The Earth Before They Left, lying on David's table, and nodded. "When do we meet?" he asked. "Tomorrow morning at Zuhause. We'll discuss everything else there." David nodded. "Thank you for telling me." "We need you for the mission," Tavi said as she stood up. "Thank you for coming with us." When Tavi got back into her star car, she felt a stone in her stomach. She didn't know if this was the right thing to do, but she was certain of one thing. Stefan would have gone through with the plan even without her and David. The thought tightened her chest. She pushed the thought away. "Focus, Tavi, focus. This is not the time for emotional nonsense," she told herself. At home, she tossed the bag onto the bed and began to pack. After a moment, she stopped and looked around her room. There was a real chance this was the last time she would see it. The last time she would sleep in this bed, surrounded by her things. She packed her favorite clothes. She picked up a red dress and held it up in front of her. It was made of a thin, soft fabric that gently clung to her body when she wore it. It was her favorite. She folded it carefully and placed it into the bag. Then she took the small clown figure from her desk. The clown's foot was chipped, and there were small scratches on his head. She had once found it at an antique market, and ever since then it had always accompanied her. The seller had told her that the little clown came from Earth from 400 years ago. Maybe it would return there now. After she had packed everything she considered important, she sat down on the sofa. A strange feeling spread through her, a mixture of excitement, sadness, restlessness, and something close to fear. She lay down on her side, turned off the light, and stared into the darkness of her room. The next morning, despite very little sleep, Tavi was wide awake quickly. When she was ready to leave and took one last look at herself in the mirror by the front door, she saw her serious face, her deep dark brown eyes, her wavy hair braided into a plait. "Take care," she said to herself, tensely, closed the door behind her, and set off for Zuhause. Stefan opened the door for her, and as she stepped inside, she saw that he arranged the chairs in a way that made the bar room look like a classroom. All the chairs were facing the wall, and 5 people were sitting and standing around, talking loudly and over one another. When Tavi entered, no one seemed to notice her at first. A large, dark-haired, broad-built, bald man stood fairly central in the room and was the first to catch her attention. He wore a black t-shirt and had snake tattoos wound around his arms. He gestured with his plate-sized hands, several rings on his fingers, as he talked to a small woman with shoulder-length blue hair and a side cut. She sat on the backrest of a chair, her arms loosely folded in her lap. Golden piercings in her eyebrows glinted, and she wore an oversized black leather jacket. Next to her stood a well-built man leaning against the beam. He had beautiful golden brown skin, and his black medium-length hair fell messily into his forehead. He was the first to notice Tavi and smiled at her. Tavi raised her hand. "Hey," she said hesitantly, and was immediately annoyed at how insecure she sounded. Further ahead, she spotted Roxy and Kent, and Tavi was glad to see some known faces. She hadn't seen them for almost 2 weeks, and immediately she felt a bit better. Pshh. Tavi was pulled out of her thoughts by the hissing sound of the airlock and turned around. David was standing there, and she felt relieved to see him. Perfect timing. Together they walked forward toward Stefan and the others, nodding to Roxy and Kent. "No way," Roxy called out, laughing. "Stefan actually managed to win you over after all?" "It was more looks who won her over," David answered in her place, and Tavi felt warmth rise to her face involuntarily. "What? The old grumbler and doubter is coming too? Where is he then?" "Okay, we're all here. Sit down," Stefan interrupted, setting up a tripod with a board-like panel. "We don't have all the time in the world." "It's a long story," Tavi murmured quickly, grateful for the interruption, then turned to look for a seat. David sat down next to her and draped his arms along the backs of the chairs to his left and right. "It's good that we're all together. First, I'll explain who's responsible for what, and then I go over the plan in detail. To gain access to the facilities of the ACIST, we have 3 employees among us, excluding Lux, who would probably die of a heart attack if he even thought about using his employee card for unauthorized purposes." A chuckle went through the group. "The employees are Tavi, David, and Tanji." He gestured toward Tavi and David and then behind them. When Tavi turned around, she found herself looking into the face of the dark-haired man who smiled at her mischievously. She thought for a moment, but she had never seen him at the Institute before. But that could happen. There were many different departments and buildings that belonged to the ACIST. David and Tanji are responsible for programming the ship. There is already a finished program that is supposed to guide the ship through the interdimensional space to the Bernard system. There are 2 options. Either we somehow have to gain access to the code and modify it so that we end up in Earth's solar system, or we have to get into the ship and tap into the code in the control room and change it there so that we get the outcome we want. This has to happen tonight if possible. David suddenly sat up straight in his chair and pulled his arms back from the chairbacks. "Today?" he asked, surprised. "How?" "Of course. How else are we supposed to manage the timing? We need a buffer so we're ready to launch tomorrow." "We should leave as soon as possible," Tavi heard from behind her. Stefan nodded. "Baltok, you're going with them. You're there to defend them in case something doesn't go according to plan." The bulky man with the snake tattoos and the rings on his fingers, Baltok, nodded with a wide grin. "I know what to do, boss." "Good. I'll leave that part to you. Everything has to be finished by the time we arrive." Tanji and Baltok stood up and looked at David expectantly. He still looked somewhat confused and undecided, but then he stood up as well. "Guess we'll see each other on the other side," he said, and followed Baltok and Tanji. "Take care of yourself," Stefan said, before the lock clicked and they disappeared behind the door. "Vika is responsible for repairs of all kinds. She was a mechanic before she could even walk and is very gifted. There has never been anything she couldn't fix. She's extremely important for the success of our mission, because who knows what awaits us." "I feel honored," the blue-haired girl with the leather jacket said with a smile. "Roxy and Kent are responsible for any medical cases." "I'm glad we can contribute with our skills," Kent said and raised his hand. "Tavi, you and Lux are assigned as pilots and general internal mission specialists. Especially at the beginning, Lux may be somewhat limited, as he will still be under the influence of the iron bands, but after some time he should regain full control of his mind and be able to contribute to the mission." Tavi nodded. "Tomorrow is Independence Day. The people of the Interstellar Space Station will be celebrating, drinking, and spending their time at the parade and bars. That will be the day we strike." Strike. Tavi had never seen her mission as an act of violence. As illegal, yes, but not as an attack. A queasy feeling rose in her as she listened to Stefan speak. "Tavi will be the first to gain access. You need to make sure the door is unlocked or open it for us. We should be there at night before the parade so we can depart as soon as the parade is on the way. By then, David and Tangi should already be finished with their programming work. Once you're inside, you open the doors for us. We will be at the ACIST at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, when everyone is asleep. I ask everyone to pack only the essentials. 1 bag. Too much luggage will only slow us down and could cause complications. The ship is stocked with clothing, food, and the toiletries. You won't need more than that. At the front entrance there will be reception staff present, despite the holiday, and the ACIST will be monitored. Starcast will be patrolling all around, but there's one entrance that lies in the blind spot of the patrolling routes of the Starcast, and is located here. Stefan pointed to the floor plan of the ACIST, which was attached to the stand. The entrance was unfamiliar to Tavi, even though she had been working there for years. It was on the west side of the building, where the storage rooms and basements of the ACIST should be. I don't know if I have access to that entrance with my card, she said. I don't know this entrance. That's why, with Tanji's help, we created a universal key, Stefan said, pulling a card out of his pocket that looked like an ACIST access card. This card should open the basement door. According to the system, the basement door hasn't been cleared for cards access for decades. No one uses that door anymore, which means this is currently the only card that has access to it. Stefan walked over to Tavi and placed the card on the table in front of her. She examined it. Have you tested it yet? No, unfortunately we didn't have the time, but Tanji tested something like this with his own card. He gave himself access to a door he didn't previously have access to, and then tried opening it with his card, which worked. So it shouldn't be any different with this card. Tavi desperately hoped he was right, and slipped the card into the inner pocket of her jacket. When should I get looks? She asked. It would be best if you take him with you right away. Ideally you lock him in the ship, and then open the door for us. Tavi stared at him in disbelief. Do you have any better idea? He asked, when he saw her expression. She thought about it. It would probably be already difficult to break into the ACIST with him, unless he didn't know they were breaking in. And that wouldn't be hard to play if her access card simply worked. As absurd as it sounded, maybe it was the only option. One thing Tavi knew, without locks, she would not leave the interstellar space station. She wouldn't just lose him by leaving him behind. She would doom her best friend, condemn him of losing his brilliant mind. Everything he was, his wonderful soul. She couldn't allow that. I'll go to him tonight, Tavi said, and Stefan continued with the briefing.